for the guys people who don't know who are watching in the chat, the chief here was one of the few, very few, to actually survive the collapse of the Trade Center, or rode the collapse down. And so, Chief, take it away. Tell us about that story.
All right, you're going to get the Reader's Digest version.
All right.
Because we're going to run out of time.
But yeah, don't worry about it. Pete can go to bed a little late. Go ahead.
my crew is Matt Komorowski, Mike Meldrum, Billy Butler, Tommy Falco, and Sal D'Agostino. You know, a really good crew. And a lot of those guys I had with me. It was with different areas, you know, different serious fires, you know. And so we had a bond and a trust in each other. And so we're in the firehouse. We hear the jet go across the sky and hit the World Trade Center, hit the North Tower. And so we respond and we make it to the front. We park the rig, the front door of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And as we're dismounting the rig, pieces of the building starting to fall off and hit our rig. So we retreated underneath the pedestrian bridge connecting the World Trade Center and the World Financial Center across the street. And we went back and forth a couple times to get our tools. And finally it was like, all right, ready, set, go. Nobody's coming down. Jump. And we ran to the front of the building. And once we get to the front of the building, there's two badly burned people right at the entrance to the building. And they were in the elevators when the plane hit. And they were badly burned. And vapors came down the elevator shaft. But now I've got my first decision of the day. Do I stop and help these two people, or I go upstairs and help a dozen people? You know, and I saw a couple of paramedics coming my way. I just signaled to them and I just pointed to the people on the ground. And I head towards the command post. And
Pete, you have that picture of the chief actually coming in the Trade Center, I think.
Let's see. Yes, I do.
So anyway, I'm approaching the command post and I see this large group of firemen coming my way. And there I am going into the command post. And it's 3 truck led by Captain Patty Brown. And I see him. He says, Jay, don't bother reporting in. They're just going to send you upstairs. Come with me. And I said, this is too big to be skirting procedure. I says, let me report in. I'll see you upstairs. So he leaves and he's got a day tour and a night tour with him. He's got half his company going up the stairs. And I'm waiting online. There's a line of company officers trying to get their orders from Pete Hayden, Joe Pfeiffer. And, we're talking, what'd you see when you're reporting in? Guys from Rescue 1 were there, and they were like, from our vantage point, it was a gigantic plane. It was a big commercial jet. And so we're talking and chatting, and all of a sudden we hear a loud noise coming from the outside, a loud explosion, and we see pieces of flaming debris coming down around us outside. And we didn't know what that was. We thought there was something blew up in our building. And a man came running in from the outside and said, a second plane has just hit the South Tower.
Jeez.
And you could have heard a pin drop in the lobby. It was very noisy before. And fireman from Rescue 1, Jerry Nevins, looks up. He says, we may not live through today. And
wow.
We stopped and we acknowledged what he said. And he says, you know what, you're right. And we stopped and we took the time to shake each other's hands and wish each other good luck. I hope I see you later. It's great knowing.
Oh, shit.
Holy shit.
I've never heard that, Chief, before.
No.
Out of all those guys, I was surrounded by when the second plane hit the South Tower. I'm the only one that's alive. They all died. Then it was my turn to get orders. And I walk up to Pete Hayden. And, and I say to him, Chief, a second plane has just hit the South Tower, thinking that he was going to send me there. He had a very astute situational awareness of what was going on. He was really on his game. And but I thought he was going to send me to the South Tower, and he just closed his eyes and he shook his head and he says, oh, I know. Just take you guys upstairs in this building and do the best you can. And I gave him a salute, and I walk over to my guys and I said, all right, here's the deal. It's a raw deal, but this is what we have to do. We have to go upstairs for search and rescue in this building. And we can't use the elevators because they've been exposed to fire. So we got to do it on foot. And the last thing I told them, I says, they're trying to kill us, boys. So let's go. And to their credit, they all said, all right, Cap, we're with you. You know, and we start heading for the B stairway of the North Tower. As we're about to hit the stairway, Sal D'Agostino turns to me and says, hey, Cap, I wonder where the Air Force is. And it struck me when he said that. It's like, geez, I've been to, you know, thousands and thousands of fires in my career. I never wondered where the Air Force was going into a fire building. And so we started climbing the stairs. And I had a plan. My plan was to take it 10 floors at a time. Take it 10 floors, stop, get a drink, catch your breath, move on for another 10. That way, when we get to the 90th floor, we would have something left to fight the fire.
Yeah.
It wasn't just getting there. You know, you had to operate once you got there. And so our plan was working, you know, and we're doing 10 floors at a time. And I get to the 27th floor, and I wanted to do a little head count and turn around and see make sure I still had all my guys. And I turned around and I'm missing 2 guys. I said, all right, stop here and we'll see if I can do it. When I go down, I find they were a floor and a half behind us. But by the time we made it back to the 27th floor, those guys were taking their break. They're catching their breath. They're getting a drink of water. And I said, all right, take your break now, and we'll push on to the 40th floor next time. We'll keep our 10 floor plan. And as we're catching our breath, people were breaking into refrigerated vending machines and giving us Poland Spring water. You know, people who were coming down.
Wow.
And I just ran into. I was talking to Andy Fredericks and Billy Burke. Captain Billy Burke was a former fireman of mine when he was in 11 truck, and I knew Andy from the Bronx. And we just finished saying hello to each other when we felt and experienced something that nobody ever felt or experienced before. Building felt like there was an earthquake going on. Our building shook violently, and it was swaying back and forth so much that you could barely stand up. And didn't really know what it was. The lights went out, and they came on about 30 seconds later. And I looked at Billy Burke. I says, Billy, you go check the south windows. I'll check the north windows. We'll meet back here and see what we can find. What happened? And I checked the north windows. I couldn't see anything. And I'm waiting for Billy Burke at the stairway, and he's walking back, and he has a funny look on his face. And I look at him and says, well, Billy, what'd you say? You know, thinking that he would tell me a piece of our building fell off or something because the building swayed so violently. And he looks at me with a straight face. He said, the South Towers just collapsed. Knowing what that meant, knowing that thousands of people right next door to where we are just were killed. And some of them were our friends. And, through all my studies in fire science and everything, and studying building construction over the years, I knew that prior to this day, a high-rise building had never collapsed before. You know, there were major high-rise building fires in Philadelphia, New York, Los Angeles, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I knew a high-rise building had never collapsed before from a fire. And now the sister building to the one we were in got hit after our building got hit, was down. It's like, it didn't take much of a mathematician to figure out that we're dead men walking. We're not going to make it out of here. And so I told our guys, let's go. Our mission is no longer doable. It's time for us to get out of here. And they walked. I was like,
wow.
I didn't stutter. I said, let's go. I said, it's time to go. And it turns out they didn't hear the conversation that I had with Billy Burke. He didn't know. They didn't know that the South Tower was down. I knew it was down, but they were resisting. The only thing they do was they just climbed 27 floors with 100 pounds of gear and equipment on their backs. And I'm saying it's been real. It's time to go. And
Yeah.
we start heading down the stairs, and we're making good time, and I got a knot in my stomach like you couldn't believe. I'm terrified, as we're going down the stairs. And my guys are cool. They couldn't be cool. And so I'm keeping my emotions under check. And we got to the 20th floor, and there's a woman standing in the doorway, and she's crying. And my guy stopped, and Tommy Falco looks at me. He says, "Hey, Cap, what do you want to do with her?" I said, "I'm thinking to myself, you're being pretty free with our time." I says, "Every second that we waste is 1 second closer to us not getting out of here." And then I looked at her. I was like, "All right, bring her with us." Billy Butler take her on, put her around his shoulders, and guys took his mask and his tools and said, "All right, stay together as a group and we'll keep going." And she wasn't walking well. She was involved in a car accident a couple of weeks prior. And but now we're greatly slowed, and coming down the stairs, and so much so we had to move aside a couple of times to allow a large jam of people to clear behind us. And people have asked me, says, what a monumental decision that was. And I says, well, yeah, looking back on it, it was, but at the time, it wasn't. It was, this is what people were doing. This is what firemen were doing. We didn't.
I would say everybody would make that call for the most part. I mean, you're not going to walk past that.
We didn't come here for the for the World Trade Center experience. We came here to save somebody's life. And so she rapidly became the reason why we went there. In our minds is, all right, there's mayhem all around us, but you're going to live. And so we continued down the stairs. And as we're going down the stairs, there's all kinds of stuff going on. One of the most memorable things was Patty Brown. Pete Hayden gets on the radio and says, "Command post to ladder 3, command post to ladder 3. Get out of the building." Patty Brown gets on the radio. I get chills every time I even say it. He says, "This is the officer of ladder company 3. I am on the 44th floor. I got too many burned people with me. I'm not leaving them. I refuse the order."
Wow.
Did he really say that? That's incredible, man.
That's a quote. "I refuse the order." All the guys from 3 truck, they tour and I tour, and all the people that were treating them were killed in the collapse. We go further down, and I see an aide from the 2nd Battalion, Faustino Apostle. He's standing in the doorway. And I say, "Hey, Faust, let's go. It's time to go." And says, "That's okay, Cap. I'm waiting for the chief." His chief was Bill McGovern, and he was supervising some sort of rescue effort on that floor. And he was waiting for the chief. He wasn't going to leave his partner. He and the chief were killed in the collapse. And then I further down the stairs to the 12th floor, and I see Mike Warcol, who was a lieutenant in 5 truck. And this was to be his last day in the New York City Fire Department.
I remember that story.
And he and a guy named John Santor, he was a stellar fireman, and a probie. They were working on a man in the stairway. And I said, "Hey, Mike, let's go. It's time to go." And he says, "That's all right, Jay. You have your civilian, we have ours. We'll be right behind you." I said, "Don't take too long." And we continued down the stairs. And as we made our way down to, we get to the 10th floor. Now I'm starting to think outside the box. I says, "Well, we're on the 10th floor. For some reason, we can't get out down here. We have all our ropes with us. We could rappel down this outside of the building, And so you start to think of options, that you could possibly use. And so we continue down the stairs, and I'm beginning to allow myself the luxury of thinking that we're going to make it. We're going to get out of this. And we get to the 4th floor, and Josephine Harris falls to the floor, and she says, She starts yelling at us, leave her, don't touch me, leave me alone, leave me behind. I was like, I'm not real happy with you right now, ma'am.
Yeah, no doubt.
We
You
just
slowed me up already.
just carried you down the stairs. So I'm thinking I'm gonna find a sturdy chair on this floor, on the fourth floor, so we could put her in the sturdy chair and we could pick her up and run with her. And I break into the fourth floor and it's a mechanical equipment on the floor. So there was no, there was a swivel chair and there was an overstuffed chair, and I'm running. I'm way on the other side of the building. And something told me, that voice on your shoulders said, this ain't working out. You're going to have to drag it down the stairs. So I did an about face. I started running back to the B stairway, and it starts. The collapse of the North Tower with us still inside. And I was able to gain access to the stairway, and my tillman, Matt Komorowski, was waiting for me on the landing. And the winds were so strong, it blew him down 2 flights of stairs. And I just dove, and we just started covering up and thinking that this is it.
What was the sound like, Chief?
It's a series of sounds. You heard the series sound of twisting steel all around you. And every time collapse at a pancake fashion, so every time a floor would hit another floor, it would be boom, 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 boom. But it was quick. It was like boom, 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 boom. And all the air that was in the building was being compressed. So it created strong winds, strong enough to pick Matt Komorowski up and throw him down 2 flights of stairs.
Wow.
And inside the building was peppered with debris. So you're getting pummeled with pieces of sheetrock or whatever else was coming down the stairs. And
did you hear it pass you, Chief? Like, did you hear it like coming, and then like?
I was the highest. I was on the fourth floor. Everybody else was spaced out below me, and no, it actually stopped like the rubble pile where the B stairway was probably about 6 stories tall.
This was the lady that you guys were saving.
Right. And that's my crew that was working that day. So,
what were you actually thinking? I know you thought this is it, but what were you really thinking? Like at that one time, were you like, I mean, I can't even imagine what that must have been like to be in that spot, to be one of the few people. This is the first time we really spoke to you about it. I didn't want to know it beforehand when we talked on the phone, the last couple of weeks.
There's the cross section of the B stairway after they pulled rubble out from beside it, and
I remember going in that stairway too.
You were in hyper survival mode. You were you didn't allow yourself the luxury of feeling sorry for yourself. It's like, let's go, we got to keep moving. As a matter of fact, when the collapse stopped, I gave out a roll call, see who we still had, and says, what about Sal, Mickey, Tommy, Matt, who am I forgetting? And everybody was accounted for, and I said, what about the woman? I didn't know her name yet. And Billy Butler says, yeah, she's right here. She's right in my face. And so our first inclination was to continue down the stairs, keep going down the stairs. And word came quickly up from below. You couldn't get out down there. You couldn't get out. You had Matt Komorowski, you had Jimmy McGlynn, and you had 3 guys from Engine 39.
39, yeah, I work with Jimmy McGlynn.
And couldn't get out. And
was it pitch black, Chief?
It was dark. You couldn't see. Eventually, what got us out is the smoke and dust cleared. Like 5 hours later, we could make things out. But it was hard to process what you had just experienced. Nobody in this world has ever experienced anything close to that. A 110-story building coming down on you. I watch it on the news now. Like I'll see a documentary.
I can't stop watching them.
I'll see the North Tower coming down. It says, firemen don't survive 1-story garage collapses. And I survived a 110-story mega high-rise collapse. And I was at the bottom of it. And my whole crew lived. And the woman we were rescuing lived.
I was just going to say, Chief, did you ever, I mean, I'm sure you've thought about this and have had these questions before, but because of what she did, do you think that helped you to be in that one spot? So you weren't outside, let's say if she moved a little faster, you would have been outside and got killed outside, or if you would have been a little higher.
We did a documentary like 2 or 3 weeks after 9/11 for NBC State Line. And they were the first one to connect those dots. That if we were a little faster, we would have been on the ground floor right outside the building. We would have been killed.
You would have killed, yeah.
If we were a little slower, we would have been above where we were. We would have been killed. We kind of had to be right there, right where we were. It's like,
yeah, it's incredible.
Mike Meldrum, my chauffeur, said, so it was kind of like she's like, this is where we're going to make our stand right here, and that's where we lived. We lived right there, and so it was incredible that we lived through that, and now we're trapped, and we're hearing all kinds of things going on, and lost my train of thought.
You're hearing noises and
we heard Mike Arcola's Mayday. He said, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is the officer allowed to fly on the B stairway, 12th floor. I'm trapped and I'm hurt bad. That Sal D'Agostino turns to me. Captain, did you get that? I said, yeah, I got it. And I started climbing up the stairway. You saw the stairway. It's there. It's like a bad vacant building stairway. You got to climb up banisters and move debris. And I make it to the 5th floor, and he gives a second Mayday. And make it to the half landing between the 5th and the 6th floor, and he gives a third Mayday. Each time he's more distraught. And the debris was so heavy I couldn't move it anymore. And then I just told him, sorry, Mike, I can't help you. And that was our first tragedy of the day, our first disappointment, that he was probably so close to us. So we passed him. We passed him on the stairway, so his location was accurate. But as it turns out, the where he said he was didn't exist anymore. His Mayday was coming from. So, but now we're trapped. What do we do? We can't get out from below. We're still trying to comprehend what we just experienced, and so we're trying to figure out how to get out. And then, I start to, we're failing at trying to get ourselves out. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I guess I'm going to have to give out my own Mayday. And, it's, with the, the rules of the New York City Fire Department for giving Maydays, there's only certain things you can give a Mayday for. And one of them is collapse occurred. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to be accused of having an uncanny grasp of the obvious by saying Mayday. But I give it, and Tom Herring from this 6th Division gets on the radio right away. Ladder 6, we got you. B stairway, North Tower. You're on the 4th floor. So, all right, things are looking up, and then as time goes on, I'm starting to hear other guys get on the radio. John Salke gets on the radio, and these are all voices that I not only some of the most competent people that I know, but some of them are close friends, and so he, John Salke gets on the radio, so it's soothing to hear his voice, and my buddy Cliff Stabner, who lived not that far away from me, he got on the radio. Rescue 3 to Ladder 6, Captain J. Jonas. This is Cliff. I'm coming to get you. Where are you? And I would tell him, Tower, we stay away 4th floor, and he would ask us a series of questions, and he would end every radio transmission by saying, I'm coming for you, brother. I'm coming for you.
Nice.
And it choked me up every time he said it. Every time he said it, it's like, I'm not worthy of this. There must be other people out there who are in worse shape than we are. And but it really felt great to be on a receiving end of having the army of the New York City Fire Department coming to find you and to save your life. It's a very powerful thing. And I mentioned Nick Visconti was a mentor of mine. He got put in charge of the rescue effort to find us. And he went around to guys and says, all right, pick 5 guys you know, and we're going to find these guys. And they had an organized rescue effort, and he would get on the radio, and it was so soothing to hear his voice. He had a very distinctive voice, and he says, "All right, Jay, I'm not that familiar with the building. Can you tell us how you got into the building?" And I says, "All right, we went through the glass doors, made a right. You first left the B stairways on the left. You came in. We got no idea what it looks like out there."
Yeah.
And we're thinking that they could just, we know where we are on the footprint of this building. They should be able to find us. And obviously, we were.
How long did it take them after you gave the Mayday, Chief, for them to come get you till you were removed?
4 to 5 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
How did you manage in that 4 to 5 hours in terms of survival to keep each other's spirits up? Did you have water? Did you have anything on you?
I had no water. We found 1 can of soda, like grape knee-high soda. We passed that around, everybody taking a sip, but I saw it as looking at it now, it was a leadership opportunity. And it was, because, like I said early in the collapse, I said, listen, guys, we survived this. We're not only going home, but we're going home today. And I'm sure they must have thought the captain has lost it. He got whacked by a brick.
He's got Dame Bramage.
And, but eventually I got buy-in. And this is, captain said, we're going home today. We're going home today. And so that really helped keep the spirits up within the building. And I'm talking to Nick Visconti. I'm talking to Billy Blage. And so I'm talking to Cliff. I'm talking to John Salka. I hear Ralph Teasel, the captain of Rescue 3, on the radio. He gets cut off by fire trying to find us. He needs to look for a hose line so he can get out. So it was an active scene that they were trying to find us. And while we were trapped, there was an explosion that happened immediately outside of our stairway, and it caused a secondary collapse. A piece of debris falling down around us, and it was the one time that Josephine lost her composure. She said that she was scared, and I said, "Look, we're all a little scared, Donna. Let's just hang in there." And but I was so proud of my guys that they took it upon themselves without orders from me, self-imposed discipline. They took care of this woman. This was an impossible situation for us, and we're used to calamity. She's not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
She's not. And they took time to talk to her about her grandchildren, kids, whatever whatever they could talk to her about. They were talking to her. And during this secondary collapse, Mike Meldrum rolled his body on top of hers to deflect the debris from hitting her. And Sal D'Agostino, after it was over, gave his coat to her to keep her from getting hit with anything else. And they told him, listen, nothing is going to happen to you as long as we're here. You're going home today. And so again, it was like a leadership thing. I got buy-in from these guys. That, they were functioning. We were constantly looking for something, and eventually that something came. And that something was that the smoke and dust cleared to the point where sunshine was hitting the stairway, which was pretty dramatic stuff. I'm looking at a ray of sunshine coming down and hitting the stairway, and I'm thinking to myself, there used to be 106 floors over my head. Now I see a ray of sunshine. I think I'm on top of the World Trade Center. And
yeah, because looking at it from our point of view, I was walking back from the city into Queens over the 59th Street Bridge. There was nothing. Yeah. Nothing. I mean, you couldn't see nothing but black smoke and dust filling the air, thick. So a ray of sunshine coming in there must have felt like home to you.
Yeah, yeah. And we had a chief in the 11th Battalion who was trapped with us, and he wanted out. He wanted to get out. And I said, wait a minute. Let's let the smoke and dust clear and a little bit more so we can I don't want to get whacked by a brick on the way out after surviving this. Let's make sure we're good to go.
Yeah.
And
Smart.
the smoke and dust cleared to the point where we could see a fireman. So we rigged him up with a life-saving rope. I says, all right, make contact with that fireman. And when you make contact with that fireman, tie off the rope. We'll tie it off here, and I'll start sending people out on the rope. And we're on an elevated point in the rubble. You could exit the stairway, and you could walk, your hands on the rope and your feet on the rubble, and which is what we did, And those firemen that were contacted were from Ladder 43 and Engine 53. It was Lieutenant Glenn Rowan, led by Lieutenant Glenn Rowan.
Think about that, Chief. Not to interrupt you, but think about what those guys were doing, right? They know you're in there somewhere, like we all did, right? We've all would have done. But think about what initially, like even by the time I got down there, we got down there, it was a couple hours later,
Yeah.
And you guys had already been removed. We had already heard that.
Yeah.
But think about the initial guys that were fucking crawling around in there trying to find guys. Like it's with active fires and everything going on. I still sometimes it boggles my mind even after all of this time.
Yeah, he was. They were superb, and Glenn made it into the building. But by the time he gets there, I said a lot of the people out of the building. You still had the guys from 39 Engine. You had two firemen and Jimmy McGlynn who was still down there. So I gave Glenn a situational status report. It's all right. Here's Josephine. She wasn't walking before the collapse. She's certainly walking now, and you're going to need Stokes basket stretcher and fresh guys. He said, okay, and so they've been in contact with Richard Prunty, Battalion Chief Richard Prunty, on the ground floor, the 39, and was talking to him, and we couldn't get to him. And we haven't heard from him in about an hour. He was going deeper into shock every time we spoke to him. But he was on the other side of the rubble. We couldn't get to him. And they got to him the next day using torches and everything. They couldn't get to him with conventional tools, what he had. And then I says, oh, yeah. Right after the collapse, we got a mayday from Mike Warcola, the lieutenant from Ladder 5. He was on a 12 stairway. B stairway, and he was trapped in her bed. And he looks at me. I says, all right, why the look? He said, the 12th floor doesn't exist anymore. And so that explained that. So we turned Josephine over to their care to extricate her, and we leave. And we first get out, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It's the first time I got a chance to look at it from the outside, and the both towers are down. The characteristic arches are there. Numbers 4, 5, and 6 World Trade Center on fire. Number 7 World Trade Center is on fire. You got fire and smoke coming up out of the rubble, and it looks like we just got bombed, and we did. That was just a bomb, and so we started making our way across and picking our way across the rubble field, which was, as you guys know, was not the easiest thing to do. And
there had to be some weird feeling, man. You're so happy to be alive, and then meanwhile, everybody is gone.
Yeah, well, and I'll get to that in a second. We're making our way there, and we have to go across this deep ditch. You have to walk across an I-beam, and there was a herd of guys coming in, and we're trying to get out. And so one of the incoming guys to get on, and one of the outgoing guys to get on. So much so till it was just me left. I wanted to be the last guy, and I went to get on, and a guy get on. I jumped off, let him come in. It happened a second time. Finally, the third time, another guy jumped on. I says, "Hey, brother, you mind if I get out of here?" And he looks up and he sees the ladder 6 front piece. He says, "Oh my God, you're the guys." Yeah, we're the guys. Going home. Yes, by all means. And off we went. And the West Street is 30 feet above us when we get to West Street. And they were dropping down ropes for people to climb up, again, hand over hand on the rope with your feet on the rubble and making your way to
Right.
And that was a very satisfying part of the day for me, seeing my guys all make it to West Street. I felt once they made it to West Street, that's where the ambulances were. And they were gonna be okay. And it was just me and Mike Meldrum left. And Mike was my senior guy. Mike, he got beat up pretty good, and he's dehydrated and he's got something going on with his hip. I think he might have had a concussion. And he said, Cap, I'm not climbing the rope. He said, yeah, you can, Mike, climb the rope. He said, no, go without me. He says, Mike, I can't leave you. I got to stay here as long as you're here. Climb the rope. And he says, I'm not doing it. So I'm thinking on my feet, how can I convince him to climb the rope? I says, Mike, see that hill? He said, yeah. Your wife and kids are on the other side of that hill. Climb the rope. And he did.
Wow.
He found the strength and courage to overcome his pain, and he climbed the rope. And make it to West Street. I go to the command post, and I see Pete Hayden, and he looks down at me. I look at him. We both start crying at the same time. He says, Jay, it's good to see you. He says, it's great to be here, and he says, get out of here, And so we go over to the ambulances. And Pete, this is where that picture. If you look at the ambulance on the stretcher, that's Billy Butler. And if you look alongside the ambulance, there's a guy sitting on the ground. That's Tommy Falco. And you see me sitting on some sort of a stool or bench or something there, leaning forward there against the ambulance. And
Wow.
I saw guys taking pictures of us when we were there. And I didn't give it much thought until after 9/11 was over. And I said, geez, I'd love to have one of those pictures. And then I had maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a guy who did the History Channel documentary on the miracle of Stairway B. He was doing research for another 9/11 project, and he was going through reams and reams and reams of pictures. He calls me up from England. He says, I think I found a picture of you at an ambulance. I says, oh my God, I've been looking for that picture for 15 years, And
Wow.
Way.
so that's a real poignant picture. That's right after we got out of the rubble.
Did you guys spend the night in the hospital there? Or you...
2 guys were removed to a hospital, Matt Komorowski and Billy Butler. Matt was
Right.
at St. Vincent's, and Billy was taken to Hoboken. Yeah, I think it was Hoboken via ferry or fireboat or whatever, however he got there. And I was, my guys were talking and chatting and everything, and guys are talking. Like I had a poignant discussion with Tommy Falco when we were there. He says, Cap, how many guys do you think we lost here today? And I was like, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred. And I caught myself when I said it. It's a couple hundred. What the hell am I saying?
Yeah.
And the greatest life loss we had was the 23rd Street collapse, and I was 12. And,
Yeah, it's incredible.
And it turns out I was way off. It was 343. And then I had Jimmy Ritchie's come up to me while I was at the ambulance, and he said, Jay, he says, congratulations. Like, congratulations for what? He says, I heard all your radio transmissions. This is the most dramatic thing I've heard in my career. Congratulations. He said, by the way, did you see Engine 4 here today? I was like, I thought about it. I said, no, I didn't. He says, my son was working in Engine 4 today. And that just like opened up a whole avenue of like, oh my God, this is going to be catastrophic for the fire department. Because it's a family-based.
Yeah.
And that's how guys get into it. So, so the rest of it.
We gotta get going, Coobies.
But you know what? I actually, before I wanted to close it out because with something. I think this is a really tough subject for us. Lou, you're squirming. Kev, I know you're having a hard time. I'm having a hard time. How did you, Chief, deal with this emotionally? You've been carrying this for 21 years.
Yeah.
And I think that it's an important question to ask because, you know, it's not over for a lot of people.
Oh, it never will be. I was honored to be in the presence of these guys doing what they did that day. I was never so proud to be a fireman as I was on September 11th, 2001, under the most stressful conditions that you could possibly imagine. These guys were doing heroic things. They were functioning. They were doing great things. They raised the bar for everybody. And if you haven't come to that realization, then you're lagging behind. These guys were incredible. And I was happy that I got a chance to witness that. You know, I had I'm fortunate that none of my guys died. All my guys lived. And the woman that we rescued lived. And if one of my guys died, you know, my emotional health would have been greatly different. You know, that would have been hard to deal with. And especially, you know, when the collapse was happening, I'm kind of thinking to myself that these are my guys. I failed them. I didn't get them out. They were my responsibility. I didn't get them out. So, you know, I was grateful for the crew that I had, that they were able to function the way they did. And again, I can't overestimate, how difficult it was to function that day. You had to muster up a tremendous amount of courage.
Oh, man.
Just to walk through the
Big
front
balls,
door.
man.
Just to walk through the front door. And so it's, you know, it is something that, you know, people who first meet me and they know my, you know, a little bit about my story, that they kind of tiptoe around me. And finally I stop them and say, look, if you got a question, ask it. You know, I'll answer your question. But you know, it's not something that I keep hidden away in the back of my brain sometimes. I think about it all the time, you know, and so it's...
There's a picture, Chief, not the country. There's a picture of 288 walking up. Actually, it's a video. It's, again, like you said, when they started doing all these documentaries, all these videos and stuff came out, and they were, and there's a video of 288 walking up, and you see the guys looking up. They're carrying an extra bottle, and they're walking up and they're looking up. The camera's in the street on the sidewalk looking at them, and they're all looking up. And it's Jonathan Ielpi, it's Joey Hunter, Ronnie Geese, Kerwin,
there was
Ryan Sweeney.
There was one documentary that I participated in. I think it was Dennis Smith's documentary on Report from Ground Zero. And Lee Ielpi was part of the documentary. And he came out with a statement, and it was so telling that, you know, firemen have a saying, when people rush out, we rush in, we charge in. You mean to tell me that firemen looked at that? They looked at that. And they said, we're going into that. He says, you're damn right they did.
You said it before you were talking, and that's what I actually post that every year since we've been doing this on our Instagram page or whatever, Facebook, all the social media. These guys knew what they were getting into, just like you said. You said it before. They knew it, and yet they still saddled up, man. They still went in there. They still did the job, and you know, you can't say enough about how we do that and how guys do that, not just in New York, but across the country, right? So
man, this
that's
wasn't
really
this wasn't
we
a,
raised the bar.
This wasn't a one-room fire, bro. This wasn't you pull up, it's a one-room fire. This is like, holy shit.
Total devastation.
And the way you said it, we raised the bar on that one. There's no doubt. We set
And
the
Chief,
standard.
Chief, you did say before that you know how you dealt with it is you looked at these people that you were with, your men, and that they were it gave you faith that it was like the best people on earth. You know, like and that you never been prouder. And I got to tell you, as a civilian in that time, we as New Yorkers, born and raised, were never prouder in the history of our lives of you guys, of the PD, but especially what you guys gave. It's an emotional thing just to say, because I remember you saw a fire truck, you stood there at attention and you waved to them and you clapped for them. If you had there were so many flags out. I'm sorry. It was we've never been prouder of you guys. As a civilian, just a regular schmo, an idiot that you guys all see me every week. Thank you, because we've never been prouder of you. All of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chief, great career. I can't, you talk about experiences. Holy crap.
I didn't realize all of the stuff that you've been at. I mean, I've heard you name my whole career.
Yeah.
And I never realized.
And now we're buddies. Look at us.
Until he yelled at me. Until he yelled at me.
Oh boy.
And now he's going to be a regular part of the show.
Now he's going to be a regular.
That I hear anyway. This is what I'm hearing around town. We're hoping.
Got a whole page of things I didn't cover yet, you know. So
we'll have to bring you back to finish that.
Maybe we'll bring you back.
Maybe we'll do that as right before we do the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. We'll finish it up.
We could do a combo, you know. Yeah. Sorry, boys.
All right, Petey.
Yeah, and I'll tell you,
close to 9/11 too. So
yeah, it's just I can't wait to be with you guys this Sunday. You know, that's why I keep over my shoulder here. There's the deceased poster of that piece of human waste. Bin Laden there, and I'm not over it. No one's over it. No one's over it.
Well,
so.
It's not like I'm definitely preaching to the choir, with this audience, but take the time Sunday to honor the day. Think about what these guys disregarded and for their own safety, and it was almost like they were signing up for a death sentence. But people needed our help. That's why we went up there.
And they went in anyway.
And there's thousands and thousands of people walking around New York City today because firemen and cops ran into that building.
No doubt about that.
And so they, the citizens of New York really owe their lives to them.
Never forget.